Robert Irwin was once the tiny boy people remember beside crocodiles, khaki shirts, and the shadow of a father the world refused to let go. But that boy is gone now. In his place is a grown man with confidence, charm, headlines, and a life people suddenly cannot stop judging. His rise has been praised, questioned, and watched a little too closely. And for Terri Irwin, the change has not been simple. She raised and protected him and kept the Irwin name alive. But now, Robert is stepping into a world even she cannot fully control. Join us, music, as we look at the transformation that changed how the world sees Robert Irwin, and what it may mean for the mother who never stopped standing beside him, the baby who started a worldwide debate. Robert Clarence Irwin was born on December 1st, 2003 in Budham, Queensland. And music, from the start, his life was never going to be ordinary. He was born into a family the world already knew. His father was Steve Irwin, the Australian conservationist who became famous through The Crocodile Hunter. His mother was Terri Irwin, an American naturalist from Eugene, Oregon, who helped run Australia Zoo by Steve's side. Robert was named after both sides of the family. Music, after Steve's father, Bob Irwin, and Terry's father, Clarence Rains. He also had in music older sister, Bindie, who had already become part of the Irwin story. So before Robert could even understand fame, cameras, wildlife, or legacy, the world had already placed him inside all of it. 1 month after he was born, Robert was blessed by Tibetan Buddhist nuns during a ceremony at Australia Zoo. But moments later, another event made headlines around the world. Steve carried baby Robert in one arm, while feeding a chicken carcass to a 3.8-meter saltwater crocodile named Murray. Robert was close to the reptile, and the public reaction was huge. Many people compared it to Michael Jackson dangling his son outside a music hotel window 1 year earlier. The outrage became so serious that the Queensland government changed crocodile handling laws. Children and untrained adults were banned from crocodile enclosures unless very strict rules and training were met. It was a dramatic start to Robert's public life, and it showed how closely people were already watching this family. This is why Robert's story never starts like a normal childhood story. It starts with love, cameras, danger, and a family name people already felt they owned. Before he had a voice of his own, strangers were already arguing about his life. The love story that built the Irwin name. To understand Robert, you have to understand the two people who shaped his world. Terri Elizabeth Rains was born on July 20th, 1964, in Eugene, Oregon. Her father, Clarence Rains, served in the U.S. Navy and later worked as a lieutenant for the Eugene Police Department. Her mother, Judy Rains, was a school teacher. Terri grew up with two older sisters, Bonnie and Patricia, and a half-brother named Ralph. Her life changed in 1991 when she visited wildlife rehabilitation facilities in Australia and met Steve Irwin. Steve later called it love at first sight. Terri felt the same pull. She said there was no one like this anywhere in the world, and described Steve as sounding like an environmental Tarzan, a larger-than-life superhero guy. For months later, they were engaged. On June 4th, 1992, they married at the First United Methodist Church of Eugene. Their honeymoon was not beaches and quiet dinners. Steve and Terri spent it trapping crocodiles. Footage from that trip became the first episode of The Crocodile Hunter, which began on Australian television in 1996 and later reached North America. The show grew into a worldwide hit scene in the United States, the United Kingdom, and more than 130 countries. It reached about 500 million people. Steve's energy, khaki shorts, strong Australian accent, music, and famous crikey made him known everywhere. But behind that global fame was a family building a life in Byra, Queensland. First came Bindie in 1998, then came Robert in 2003, and his birth made the Irwin legacy feel even bigger. The cameras loved Steve, but Terri was never just standing beside him. She was part of the work, part of the risk, and part of the dream. That mattered later because when Steve was gone, she already understood music, the mission, the father Robert barely got to know. Steve Irwin was born on 22nd of February, music 1962 in Upper Fernree Gully near Melbourne. His parents, Lynn and Bob Irwin, both had Irish roots. Lynn was a maternity nurse, and Bob was a former plumber and amateur herpetologist music, who collected reptiles. From childhood, Steve loved reptiles, especially snakes and lizards. He sometimes collected them even when his father warned him not to. In one story, he even brought a red-bellied black snake home on a public bus, carrying it in the driver's ESI. That wild love for animals later became his life's work. Steve did not just teach people about animals. He made them care. After The Crocodile Hunter, he appeared in Croc Files, The Crocodile Hunter Diaries, and New Breed Vets. Animal Planet also created Croc Week, which ran every June from 2000 to 2007. In January 2006, Steve told Jay Leno that Discovery Kids was developing a show for Bindi, a plan that later became Bindi the Jungle Girl. But Robert did not get much time with the man behind that legacy. Steve had also known loss before his own children did. On 11th Music, February 2000, his mother Lynn was killed in a car accident. In an online tribute, he, Music, called the most beautiful, loving, nurturing, and music-caring person have ever blessed this world. That kind of love and loss became part of family story long before Robert faced it himself. When Robert was only 2 years old, Steve was killed, Music, by a stingray barb injury to the heart while filming an underwater documentary at Bat Reef, Music, near Port Douglas on September 4th, 2006. Terri and the children were reportedly trekking through Cradle Mountain in Tasmania that morning. 5 days later, Steve was given a private funeral in Caloundra and buried at Australia Zoo. Then on September 30th, 2006, a public memorial was held at Australia Zoo's Crocosum. More than 300 million viewers watched across Australia, the U.S., and Asia. For Robert, the world mourned his father before he was old enough to understand what had been taken. The mother left to hold Music, everything together. After Steve's death, Terri was left carrying more than grief. She had 2 children to raise, a zoo to help run, a public image to protect, and a conservation mission to keep alive. She had to be a mother in private and a strong public figure in front of the world. That is a heavy thing for anyone. Terri later shared pieces of how lost she felt during that time, but she kept moving because Robert and Bindi needed her. Australia Zoo needed her. And millions of people were still looking to the Irwins for strength. She could not stop being a mother just because the world wanted her to Music, be strong. Some days she had to smile through interviews. Other days she had to protect Music. Private pain no camera should touch. After Steve's memorial, the 9 Network aired an interview between Terri and Ray Martin. It drew 2.9 million viewers, and many people praise her for how natural and clear she sounded while speaking through pain. On October 31st, 2006, she went to the Royal Albert Hall to present a special recognition award to Sir David Attenborough at the British National Television Awards. She said Attenborough had been a great inspiration to Music, Steve. He praised Steve in return for bringing new audiences to the natural world. Late that year, the original video of Steve's death was handed to Terri, and all copies were destroyed to stop it from ever becoming public. In November 2007, Terri published My Steve. In 2009, she became an Australian citizen on Steve Irwin Day. Through it all, she watched something quietly grow in Robert. Even as a toddler, he did not seem scared of animals. He connected with them naturally. It was not forced. It looked like instinct. And for Terri, that must have been both beautiful and painful. Robert's first steps into the spotlight. Robert's television life began before he could even remember it. On March 22nd, 2004, he made his television debut when his parents appeared on Enough Rope with Andrew Denton. Later, he appeared Music, twice on Bindi the Jungle Girl from 2007-2008, and had an uncredited cameo in the family film Free Willy, Escape, Music from Pirates Cove. By the time he was around 4, he was already appearing on television with Terri and Bindi. People quickly noticed he was not just being placed in front of a camera because of his last name. He seemed comfortable. He, Music, was excited around wildlife. He could explain animals in a way that felt real. At 8 years old, after Music extensive training, Robert was allowed to feed alligators and freshwater crocodiles for the first time under expert supervision. In March 2013, he earned his first Logie Award nomination for Most Popular New Male Talent for Steve Irwin's Wildlife Warriors. That same year, he released a children's book series Dinosaur Hunter, which he co-authored with Lachlan and Jack Wells and also illustrated. Around that period, he was also part of a 6-year campaign led by Terri to stop Boyd strip mining at the Steve Irwin Wildlife Reserve on the Cape York Peninsula. In November, the Queensland government passed legislation to protect the reserve from mining. Because of homeschooling at Australia Zoo, Robert's education could fit around wildlife and media work. He later graduated high school at 15 with 2 TA certificates, which showed how fast his unusual childhood had pushed him forward. Robert was still young, but his role was becoming clear. He was not only the son of Steve Irwin, he was music, already helping carry the mission forward.